The Red Sox general manager, Brayan O'Halloran, joins us this morning on the Harbor One hotline. Hey, Brian.
Hey, good morning.
What a bright bit of sunshine in a near solar eclipse. Brayan Bello has been so far this season. Another.
Yeah, he's been amazing, and last night was, another indication of it. As a great night at the ballpark. He goes out and plugs along here with another 7 innings. Really nice outing, and helps us win a ball game.
So I feel like we ask this every time, but I'll try to do it in a different way. When you're discussing this team internally and looking at post All-Star break and a trade deadline, are you guys starting to decide whether you're buyers or sellers? Are you underway with those discussions?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that really we're always talking about it to some degree, like as the season progresses. So yes, but it's not time yet for a determination of sort of which direction to go. We got almost, 3.5, close to 4 weeks left before the deadline, and we're game over 500. We need to see how we play over the next few weeks, and just have to be realistic about it. Hopefully, we get on a run here, get ourselves squarely, in good in a good spot and contention for postseason. We think we're very capable of that, and hopefully last night, is an indication that we keep going forward here, and we'd be looking in that case to add to the team if a realistic assessment of our chances leads us to a different conclusion, then we have to deal with that, and so over the next few weeks, that's when that will be determined.
What is in your mind getting to a good place? You're in last place in a very difficult division. What is in your mind getting to a good place?
Yeah, I mean, it ultimately comes down to chances of making the postseason is sort of a primary factor. A lot of stuff gets factored into that, including where you stand health wise with return to play for players and projections going forward, and just what how the other teams are, where you are in the standings, what the odds are. Those are the types of things that go into it. It's tough to where we don't put an exact there's no formula for it, but it's something that we'll keep talking about as we get closer to the deadline.
Brian, how frustrated is it, though, when you look at it? You're not out of it, but you kind of don't. I mean, I guess you're still trying to figure out what your team is, but you're at this point now where it seems like you could be doing this all season long, where you're not completely out of it. You're only 3 or 4 games from being a wild card team. How frustrating is it to be at this point in the season, and you're still trying to figure out what the identity of your ball club is?
Yeah, well, it's frustrating to not be where you want to be. It's better than being 10 or 12 games out, but it's not as good as being 10 or 12 games on the other side of it. So there's frustration that we believe we're a capable team. You see it certain nights. Obviously, it's been a very up and down year. So there's some frustration that we haven't been more consistent, but that there's a lot of baseball to be played yet, and this team is capable of making a run, and we're just going to go out and do it.
Brian, is this about where you expect it to be?
I would say I would have expected us to be further ahead in the standings than we are. We felt we had a competitive team, which it is a competitive team. Wouldn't have hoped or expected to be in last place in our division, even though it is a very tough division, as you guys said earlier. But that's the division we play in, so we got to deal with that. I don't think we're that far off because I do think it's a good team, but it just hasn't been as consistent as we'd like it to be and as we think it can be. So we got to change that going forward.
I guess the reason I asked that, maybe not as much the standings, but the record at 1 game over 500, a little over halfway through the season, that the big talking point out of the front office with the Red Sox has been that we need to play better to buy. And so I guess, given Heim's history at Fangraphs, I believe he's got a system to predict wins and losses in Major League Baseball. From the outside, it appears you're about a game, 2-3 games apart, about where many people expected you to be. So if people and you guys are around where you thought you would be, then was the plan all along to sort of just get through this year as best you can before the farm system can really start delivering starting quality players?
Well, the plan is to try to compete to win a championship every year. Yes, there are some years, that you go into the season, if you're looking at projections or however you're assessing where you stand, that you might be a little above or a little bit below, a previous year or a future year. But the plan is to try to be competitive every year while we continue to build the organization long term. That's what we're trying to do.
Speaking of long term, when it comes to a player like Shohei, notice I said not him specifically, so you can answer this question, like Shohei. Because you've been in the game and doing this for a while, what are the keys when it comes to getting a player like that here?
Well, I'll speak about a generic great player.
Correct. Maybe the greatest maybe the generic greatest player of all time in the game. Yes.
I mean, look, when you're trying to get top free agents to your club, there's a lot of things that go into it. There's a lot of research behind the scenes. Of course, there's the baseball part of it and assessing the player, and then there's the background research of trying to learn as much as you can about the person if it's someone that you haven't had in the organization previously, especially. And then there's of course it takes two to tango, and the player has to have interest in the market, and you do what you can to market yourselves, market your city, market your organization to players. A big thing that usually comes in situations like that is your manager and your players. They're probably the biggest part of convincing players to come to a new team.
Brian, one of the things that I'm always kind of fascinated by, and I don't understand it, when I see other sports, whether it's, I come from the world of football or even basketball, when a team is they're not really out of it, but it doesn't look like maybe they're going to really make a big push for the playoffs, they tend to start playing younger guys to get reps. Why is baseball different? Like, you got guys that are down in the minors, like a guy like Marcelo Meyer, right? Why wouldn't you bring him up to get him at-bats, to get him, major league action? Why is it that it seems like in baseball they tend to wait longer to bring up younger players and not just say, hey, we're going to throw them into the fire and let them get that exposure?
Well, for the most part, the answer to that is, in baseball, just if you look at the history of it and how quickly guys move and the reps that they need to have in the minor leagues to transition successfully, which even when they do have all those reps, it's a very tough transition to the big leagues. That it's just different than some other sports in that way, and you don't want to rush players and hurt their development. So you have to sort of take it step by step. There are times when guys, step up and you kind of feel that you feel that they can step up and make that jump. Devers was a guy obviously that moved quickly and was very young when he got called up. Some guy, we've had guys like that that have skipped AAA or stopped very briefly in AAA. So it's not that it doesn't happen, but for the most part, baseball is a game of reps, and young guys need to get those reps at each level as they move up to have a chance to be their best in the big leagues.
Brian, thanks for joining us this week, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, thanks, guys.
All right, Brian O'Halloran.